Hello peeps, it's Philosophy Sunday. And on Philosophy Sunday today we're going to have an actual philosopher. And here he is, the great Friedrich Nietzsche, the best of the philosophers, the most prog of all the philosophers. And what's Nietzsche got to say to us today, right? Apart from brandishing that magnificent moustache, that if he was a progressive rock musician, would have definitely put him at #1 in the greatest prog moustaches. And when I get round to doing my video on the greatest philosophy moustaches, obviously Nietzsche will win. Look at the size and majestic monumentalness of that upper lip hairy appendage. And what's Friedrich saying to us today? And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Of course you would, wouldn't you? You know, if you looked at a group of people in a room just jumping and jittering about, you think, what the hell's going on? Without that magical component of music, and music is a magical thing, it doesn't seem to make sense. But for me, that statement has much deeper metaphorical meanings. Right? We could, of course, just apply that to life and say there is something in life that certain people have an understanding of, and that those people who don't have the understanding of that thing, those people appear to be insane. But for me, this actually has got even more depth to it than that as a statement, because he says, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music, not know about the music or know the music was thing. They couldn't hear it. Right? I've just shot a video where I've tried to explore this idea that there are some people that can hear music better than other people. Right? And there's a type of intelligence that people have, and that a lot of the music we talk about on this channel requires someone with a certain kind of intelligence to understand it. And those who cannot hear that music, they cannot hear it, it will just sound like, you know, fiddly widdly piddly to them. That's the name I'm using today for that. But for us, we know it's not fiddly widdly piddly. We know that there's something highly emotional and sublime about it. But it's really hard to describe that to people who don't know about it. Now, why does this matter? Well, in the title for this, I'm going to call this video, and I haven't decided what I'm going to call it yet, but it'll be something like I'm not insane, I'm a musician. I might go with a title like that. Many people watching this channel that are really seriously into this sort of music we cover here, or are creative people who are trying to make music, will be suffering, I think, with some form of anxiety or depression, or a sort of horrible cocktail of the two. And they may well have seen that they've got this love of music and that's what they want to do, but they also suffer with this mental health issue. On this video, I want to draw those two things together, and I want to show how that mental health issue is not actually a mental health issue. It's a part of being able to hear the music. Right? So, you're a youngster growing up, normal life, or maybe an abnormal life, but you hear some music on the radio, and when you hear it, it seems to have an effect that it doesn't on other people. That's interesting, isn't it? That's what happened to me, and I'm sure it's what happened to you. Music appearing almost magically in your life. What's this? What's this music? What's this? This is making me feel a certain way. Right? It's making me feel not necessarily happy or sad. It's just making me feel. It has a magical quality to be able to change the state of affairs that I'm in. When I was very young, I can remember being at school, probably about 5 or 6, and a clarinet quartet came into the school of kids who were probably about 11 or 12, and they played in the room, in the hall that I was in. And I remember thinking, this doesn't sound like music that's on the radio or on a record. This has got a different aspect of it. I can hear it in the room. It's more real. It was more woody, and it was more breathy, and it was more roomy, and it was more in the momenty. And I can remember being shocked by it and realizing that music was an incredible thing. That what these people had been able to do for me was unbelievable, was wonderful. That they could come in and play this, and it was the very sound. It was the beauty of that sound. I had no education musically. I hadn't studied music. I couldn't organise it. But as time went on, that motivation to do that, to try and understand it, to try and work out what this thing is, made me pursue that. I didn't decide to become a musician. I decided to explore this thing that I found so wonderful. I went around hitting things and banging things and twanging things. And eventually the hitting and banging and twanging ended up me being a drummer. But I never set out to be a drummer. Those skills just happened because I had what I would say was a heightened awareness of this aesthetic. Right? I had a heightened awareness of beauty. I appreciated the organisation of sound and art and visuals, because I was also really into painting and drawing as well as a kid. I had a heightened awareness of that. As I got into my teenage years, I then started to develop really high levels of anxiety, unbelievably high levels of anxiety. The anxiety came from my ability to imagine a catastrophic future for myself. And I would do that all day long, except when I was involved in music, when I was playing my drums or writing music or creating music, or even more importantly, playing with other people, being on stage playing. Something that should be frightening for me was not a frightening place, because as soon as I got into that machine that was in my brain that was catastrophizing all the time, suddenly could go on to the music. And now I could be in the moment, moving forward, thinking about what's going to go ahead, right? When I do one of these videos, I sit and put the camera on, and I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. And as I start to talk, I start to create this thing of being in the moment and talking, but having an idea that I'm going towards something. And I'm doing this right now. I'm going towards the concept of trying to explain how musical appreciation can turn into musical ability and turn into a creative want to create music, and how that sort of not only soaks up this catastrophizing part of my mind, and now we move on to the next chapter of my little talk, which I'm consciously moving towards, that the actual fact is that this motor I've got, which is able to appreciate beauty in the world, right, is actually, without having the problem of beauty not being there, right, will then turn itself onto the world outside there, and fundamentally myself and my relationship to that world. So that's the next chapter, and that's the one I'm moving towards, and for many of you go, well, I didn't quite follow what you said, so now I'm going to repeat it again. I've got to go through this again now so that you can try and see what I'm trying to say. Some people, everybody needs art. Everyone needs to get in the car. They're trying to get the kids to school. They put on the radio, and the radio comes on, and some pop music comes on, and they quite like it. And the reason they quite like it is because that music on there is loaded with the very mechanism I was talking about. It's loaded with the thing that gives someone a feeling. And that feeling is actually a feeling happening in the now. It pulls you into the moment. Stops you from worrying things. But to think, for most normal people, that thing that they've got is on a normal level, right? So when it comes to anxiety, you could have a normal level anxiety. So your anxiety switches on when it should. You could be one of those insane people that has no idea of danger or anything bad happening to you, that just goes through life in a devil-may-care way, just being disastrous because they just don't think ahead at all. And then you got the people right up here whose mechanism of future-proofing is really heightened. Now the question is that some sort of inherited mistake, or is there some utility to that? Now, when you look at scientists, what do scientists and artists do? They question, why are leaves green? Why is the sky blue? Why's the wind and where's it come from? And they want to work those things out. They have a heightened thing to want to know about truth. Artists have a heightened awareness of what is beautiful, and they want to fix what is not beautiful to make it beautiful. That is essentially what an artist does. Right? The artist takes subject matter, it takes formal stuff, and it tries to manipulate it to make it beautiful. Right? The criteria on which it chooses that stuff is what makes the art culturally significant. So say human beings, we all know the countryside's lovely, and many artists have painted the countryside and they've shown us how lovely it is, and we look at the art and we go, oh my God, that's a beautiful landscape, that is. And that artist can appreciate it, and they've shown me why it's beautiful. Because the artist took out the telegraph poles that were in that scene, and the clouds that weren't arranged absolutely in an aesthetic way. They manipulated it, and they just showed me. They pointed at what is beautiful. But when I'm watching it, it's what it's making me understand is what is beautiful about the landscape. But if you go to a factory and you see a factory full of all that degradation and rust and smoke and all that sort of detritus of human industry, when we look at that, that's not beautiful, is it? And then an artist goes, I wonder if I can make it beautiful. Is there a beauty in that? And what is the beauty? And the artist goes down to the factory and they look around and they go, well, I can see that is aesthetically pleasing. It's not pleasing the way a landscape is, but it relates to landscape. But there's other things in there. And this is the negotiation that goes on. Now, if you're a creative person, you need the mess. Right? If you're a panicky person, right? If you're a panicky person and you're sitting there having an anxiety attack, you know what will cure it? An actual problem. It's bizarre. An actual terrifying problem. Because an anxious person's been preparing for that their whole life. Right? When I've been in real situations of actual anxiety, I have always been aware of what Gurdjieff called self-remembering. I suddenly become fully conscious and I say to myself, there is an inner calm here because all I can do is deal with the situation, and that's the best thing I can do. When you're actually in that stressful situation, are anxious people there because the tribe needed them to be anxious? They needed a few people looking out. When you see little, what are those little creatures that stick their heads above? What are they called? Meerkats. Yeah, meerkats. And meerkats, that whole group suffer with anxiety, don't they? They've all got some sort of general anxiety disorder, aren't they? Because they're like this all the whole time. But you have to be like that, and they've got to have someone out there doing that. You go, what's that over there? Is that a bird? Is that someone going to try and kill us? Does somebody want me? I'm so cute, they're going to come and grab me. That's a me, and that's I've spent my whole life in that zone, except when I'm making music. Because when I make music, that heightened mechanism, that anxiety that I've got, can be put onto that. And I know that my skill as a musician is the ability to take elements and make them into music. And I almost have, it's like, it's not me. It's something comes from outside and says you need to do this, this and this. And it comes when I'm really playing, and it comes when I'm composing. I know what needs to be done next. And I sit there in a sort of thoughtless state, just doing. I don't question it. I very rarely sit back and go, well, what happens? What do I need to do next on this piece of art? And I think artists who do that I don't think they've really learnt truly how to be creative. Right? I try and focus on clearing my mind and trying to access something that is beyond me and letting that do it. Don't know what that is. It could be some sort of, collective conscious working it through me, or it could be some sort of just basic subconscious, mental process that I'm trying to access. I just don't know. I just don't know. But the fact is, I know when I'm in that state, I'm not anxious. Now, Some of you will be going, yeah, well, I'm not an anxious person, I'm a depressive person. Right. Depressive people are like anxious people, but in reverse. Rather than go catastrophizing about the future, they go over their past over and over again in a round circle. Oh, that did I was cursed because this happened to me, and then that happened to me, and then that happened to me, and nothing ever good happens to me because of this, and this. And again, it's the ability to look into the past and see problems. Creative people require problems to exist. So, if we go back to this Nietzsche quote now, and my computer's gone funny. See. What I find so interesting about it is the ability to hear music, and that is the big theme for this week. I've done 2 videos on it so far, this one and the one about prog fans having to be clever. I don't think it's clever in the terms of being like a mathematician or being able to solve problems. I think it's a musical ability, the way that you could decipher the emotional code that's within sound. All right, sound is massively emotive. The reason why sound's so emotive because sound and hearing and listening is our superpower. Everything else is local to me. I can only touch what's around me. I can only see what's around me. But my hearing, I can hear cars going down the road. I can hear through walls, through ceilings, round corners. Right? I can close my eyes and be enveloped by a perception of the world which is behind me, above me, far away and close. It's in stereo. I can see where things are, right, without looking at them. This is incredibly powerful sensory sense. It's an incredibly powerful sense that we have. And because of that, music is the most visceral of the art forms. Because art has 2 parts to it. It has a sort of intellectual part which we can associate with the left brain, which we could associate with sort of reason and logic and perfectionism. I've said this a million times before. And then there's this visceral part. Music tends to be much closer to the visceral. You know, it's like if you imagine hedonism, you may imagine people in a nightclub dancing up and down. You don't imagine them sitting reading a book as being hedonistic, because that, although there's emotions and feelings that come through that, those emotions and feelings come from the story. With music, the beauty comes from the sensory, but there is the story aspect of music. And if you want to be a great musician, the visceral part is so easy that you need to focus on the story part. If you get the story part right, you will be a more successful musician, because that's the thing everybody gets wrong. If you're a writer, and you're writing a story, you better make sure that story is emotive and gives you a feeling that there's something in there that actually, you know, that the first chapter you go, oh my God, what's going to go on? And this is tense and all that type of thing. So I think that when it comes to creative people, I think that creative people really are people with a heightened awareness of certain sensory material, and they are able to gauge that in a very refined way and process that, right, whether they are a listener or, probably more importantly, if they were a musician. And they have a desire to do that. They have a motivation to take what is not quite right and make it more right, and then present that to the world. And they believe that there is an importance in doing that. That motivation will actually also, as a byproduct, create anxiety or depression in that person. The solution for that person is to become more creative, but we don't live in a world which is conducive to creative people, and the reason is because most people aren't creative and they make the world what it is, right? So they don't value that at all. And so the people who have that, this is where I differ from the sort of right-wing view of the world, which should be a meritocracy, and, you know, people should go to school and they should work hard, and the clever people should be rewarded with well-paid jobs that make money, right? I don't think the world's about that. I think fundamentally our human existence is actually rooted in the aesthetic, and there's something we need to do before all this happens. And if you want your money and your jobs and your technologies, and if you want your sort of liberal political processes that value people, and all these things that we value at the moment, those fundamentally come down to negotiations that were made by creative people, people who sat there with anxiety and depression, trying to soldier their way through life without well-paid jobs, without a sort of a safety net of normality, because they didn't get up in the morning just to try and climb the greasy pole of life. They got up and experienced life and tried to show us the beauty to all the people sliding slowly down that greasy pole. And what is the point? And that they look to the side, they go, oh that person's pointing to that sunset. Maybe there's more to life than the greasy pole. And there is. And if we don't support the artists, and if we don't support the people with anxiety and depression, and the people with mental health issues, and also the people who are on the spectrum in autism, because that's another video. I think I have met so many autistic students that are brilliant musicians, and their autism is just the thing that keeps them focused and on task. It's an incredible thing. I've seen it so many times, where I have felt that this person's the real deal, because they have got the ability to stay at this for 6-7 hours a day, which is what you need to be able to do this, and most normal people can't do it. And they're all through their life they've been labelled autistic or Asperger's, when really what it is, they are highly focused on specific things at the cost of other things. And once they have that focus, usually the bad aspects of their autism are put under control. I'm not a psychologist, and you have to take everything I say here with a pinch of salt. I'm a musician with observations, that's all I am. But one of the things I've noticed is that people with autism or Asperger's, it gets better once they get beyond their teenage years. And I think what that is because they find the mechanism to control it. And once they're involved in making music or making art or doing something which is pretty obsessive, right? The world around them makes more sense. The people around them make more sense. I've known many a band being able to, be friends and support the guy in the band who is the anal retentive obsessive of that band, because they do a job. I really believe a lot of these mental health issues are actually come from things that have evolved in us, that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, if not, maybe 1 million years, and have then come slam bang into human civilization, which has only been around for 5,000 or 6,000 years, which in an evolutionary sense is nothing. So we're wired to operate in a certain way, and now we're having to deal with an environment which is so rapidly changing that our evolved, psychology cannot keep up. I think we partly invented art to do that, because I think this ability to have a balance between the visceral gut intuition and rationalism back in a sort of prehistoric world, that thing would be married much closer together. And there was a utility in believing that there was gods in the sky, and that there was, you had to sacrifice things to get the sun to come round the next year when the winter came in, and all that type. There's a utility of acting like that bound people together. Then you suddenly hit a modern world, right? And we are about to go into an era now where AI, which does not suffer with anxiety and depression, will start making more and more decisions for us, and these decisions will appear to those who are just normal and don't want any dirt in the system. These opinions will seem to be better than human beings' opinions, because human beings' opinions will start to seem chaotic and absurd and irrational. All right, but within that is the very dirt that goes into the whatever shell it is to create the pearl. What shell is a pearl inside? Can't remember. Is it a pearl shell? Or is it a certain type of shell? There's a name for it, isn't there? Or is it named after the pearl? I can't remember. I can remember once I'm at the end of the video now, so I'll tell you a story. I can remember I was sat with someone once many years ago, and they turned around to me and said, "What's the name of the bird that goes cuckoo?" I just had a moment like that, didn't I? I'm sure I did. Sorry. Anyway, I've got to the end of this video. I hope that was some word. I hope you got something from this. I have done another video about this, and you can go and search it out, which is an hour long. This one is only half an hour long. And I hope I've said something different to what I said on the other video. I don't know. I'm in a very rambly zone this week. Being very rambly in my videos this week. And that's just the way it is. And there's nothing I can do about it. Anyway, if you like this video, you can like it by liking it. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe by pressing the subscribing button. And once you subscribe, you'll be subscribed. What that means, I don't know. I think it's like YouTube may tell you that I got another video on, but I'm pretty sure if you don't watch them, it'll stop telling you. So if you really want to know when the next video is coming on, ring the notification bell, right? If you want to support me in my rambling to camera, right, 4 times a week, which is a lot of rambling, and it's taking a lot out of me. You know, when I first started this channel, I was doing like 2 to 3 videos a week. They were 10 minutes long and they required no editing. I just filmed them on this camera, and I then took the memory card out and just uploaded it straight, and it was done. I could do a video, 10-minute video, I could get turned around in 30 minutes. It was a hobby. Now, this is like a full-time occupation for me. I've bought my posh camera today out of the money that you've said to me. I've got my posh camera and I've got my posh microphone, and the battery ran out, so I need to buy some batteries, you see. And if you want to support me buying batteries for my posh camera, because I need the money, right? You could support me by either becoming a Patreon. And when you go to my Patreon, it's full of all this bonkers content, and we all get together and we talk and we chat, and every Friday now we have the Patreon meet, we have guests. It is a lot of fun, I promise you. Not all the patrons are coming into the meetings. I don't know what I would do if they did. It would be a very, very, oh, I'd love that. 100 people in a great big Zoom meeting with me at the centre. Me at the centre of my online kingdom. So yeah, if you want to come be part of my online kingdom, become a patron. And if you want to not become a patron but support me, then put a few pennies into my YouTube tip jar, which is just down there. The few people have been doing, and that's why I've been able to get a new microphone. I'll show you my camera, well, because my battery ran out. I've realised now I need a number of batteries if I'm going to do this. One battery is not enough. I charged it all night. I did 2 videos and then it ran out, but I've bought this thing. Look at that. I've got this now. I've got a proper camera, you see. Bought with the funds provided by you lovely viewers of my channel. And it's got a little dinkly furry microphone. So when I'm talking on this, you can hear my rich tones rather than this sort of boxy shed-like sound that you're listening to now. I can come up close. I can talk to you like that and give you a nice, but then you'd have to have the video like this. I think that would freak people out, wouldn't it? It's Philosophy Sunday. Philosophy Sunday. It is Philosophy Sunday, isn't it? That's this video. Yeah, it's Philosophy Sunday. So, you know, I think I've got to the end of the video. And I've done all the lights and things. I've told you to give me some money. I think I'm done now. So, that's it. That other camera just made a noise. Did you hear it? It made a noise. Why is it making noises for? It's not on. I don't understand that camera. It frightens me. I don't like complex things. My brain's not able to deal with complex. I like things simple, right? I love things to be very simple. I like to be able to just go in and do my thing and concentrate on the thing. Not worry about cameras that are clicking in the background and telling me things. I don't know what's going on there. It's frightening. The modern world. Are we really wired to be able to deal with it? It is such a complex place at the moment, and it will get ever more complex. And us little human beings are just getting blown around in it at the moment by the powers that be. It's quite apparent. We probably always have, but I think the internet's exposed it, but also exacerbated it. And as AI does kick in, and the powers that be realise it's much better doing jobs than we are, we will be just this big fleshy lump, right? And what will they do? They'll either kill us all, or they'll put us in a nice little box and try and keep us happy, which I think is what their plan is. Get us in our nice little box. Don't go out. Stay at home. Go into your metaverse where you can be whatever you want, right? But the one thing you can't be is a real person in the real world, living a real life, because that's been taken away, because we're going to be controlled. And so they sell the ideas to us. You know, every Disney movie pushing the ideas that we can be whatever we want, we just have to believe, right? Well, you will be able to be whatever you want in the future. As you lie there, fat and bloated and pasty, with your goggles on and your headphones on, you know, running around the place looking like Keanu Reeves in John Wick, you know, jumping through windows and falling 100 foot and standing up and not dying. Because there will be no death in that realm. There will be no real threat. There will just be a bland existence that has no real cost. That has nothing really at stake. But the person now, as I'm talking, who is halfway up a mountain with the wind blowing round and the rain lashing against their face, is at once risking their life, but is at once very aware that they are alive at that moment. And to really truly feel alive, you have to know that you're going to die at some point. And for us anxious people, fundamentally, all of that is rooted in our knowledge that we will die one day. How do we come to terms with death? We come to terms with death by dealing with it as a feeling, as an emotion. Being able to put our emotions, our feelings into context, to be able to box them up into something that we can get our hands around and go, that is what I'm dealing with here. And art allows you to do that. Being a musician allows you to do that. It shows you that, and it puts you in a context. And I think that is possibly why art and music is such a great remedy for those of us who are anxious and depressed and hyper aware of our own demise. I didn't say that on the other video, so there you go. I've given you something that I didn't say on the other video, so I'm happy now. I'm going now. I'm done. See ya. Bye.